This video is brought to you by my loyal patrons. Pledge today and receive exclusive perks. Link in the description. Lost media. Forms of content that were once easily accessible to the public eye, that are now either lost to time, left on the cutting room floor, or sometimes intentionally destroyed. But whatever the reason may be, they all have an interesting story behind them. StoryBots is no different to this worldwide phenomenon. Throughout its 12 years on the air, the company has produced lots of series and specials under their name, including over 200 songs and loads of miscellaneous material. But like all franchises, there comes a time during production where something gets changed or even cut entirely from the final product. It could be something that had to be changed in post-production. It could be a scene that was never fully included purely due to time restraints, an episode concept that never came into fruition, a character that never made it into the spotlight, or even content that at one point in time was accessible to pretty much everyone, but now can no longer be viewed simply from it being wiped out of existence. It all varies greatly. Now, lost media in general is a rather fascinating topic amongst people on the internet, and I am definitely not the first person to cover such a subject. Lots of people enjoy seeing these relics of the past come to surface again, and it shows us a new perspective on what production could have been like in an alternate timeline. And StoryBots is no exception to that. Since no one, at least to my knowledge, has ever covered a StoryBots lost media video before, I thought what a better time than now to cover exclusive StoryBots content you never saw. We're going to go over some of the most elusive pieces of StoryBots media in this video, some of which you're probably familiar with, and maybe some you haven't even heard about yet. Before we begin, I should mention a few disclaimers. First of all, not every single piece of content will be featured in this video. Some of these changes are so small that they're probably not worth mentioning on their own, such as a change in dialogue in the script.
I told you guys they would come. It's a new dawn.
Greetings, space people. We are your friend.
A change in lyrics in the song.
Did you play in the mud? Are you about to eat? Did you just massage a weasel's feet? Did you play in the mud? Are you about to eat? Did you just massage a kitty cat's feet?
A change in gender, like in the Elements song, where the beryllium atom is depicted as male in the storyboards.
I'll sing you now a ballad to unlock a mystery. Everything is made of atoms that are far too small to see.
But was later changed to female in the final version.
I'll sing you now a ballad to unlock a mystery. Everything is made of atoms that are far too small to see.
Or the many upon many different character design concept arts. If we went through every single one in this one video, then we'd probably be here forever, and that is honestly something I just personally don't want to put myself through, so I'm not going to include them. Sorry. Also, I am in no way claiming that this will cover every single piece of lost media ever, as there are probably a few articles floating around somewhere that even I'm not aware of. So, if there is any piece of lost media that got recently discovered that I didn't mention in this video, feel free to let me know. And maybe if there's a good amount of content for a future video, then I might make an addendum. Who knows? And finally, the most important thing to take away here is that everything in this video is mostly just my speculation. Please do not treat any of my reasonings here as concrete or complete facts, because they simply are not. I don't know every little detail about StoryBots, guys. I mean, I wasn't in the editing room after all. So if you want more information about a particular scene or a particular character, you should be asking that to these two guys, not me. I'm just gonna put that out there now. So without further ado, let's take a deep dive into the cut content and lost media from the StoryBots franchise. We'll start from the bottom and then work our way to the top. Let's go. Number 25. Ask the StoryBots, Korea Edition. Okay, I know this technically doesn't count as it's not really considered lost per se, but given how exclusive this is in its respected country, I felt it worthy enough of including on this list. So when Ask the StoryBots was initially broadcasted on Netflix, it was given the dub treatment, receiving 22 languages in over 190 different countries. Each one of the foreign dubs provide a different take on the show, with different voice actors and all.
¡Andando, chicos! ¡Vamos!
Sí, amigo.
However, when it came to the Korean dub, they wanted to take it a step further. Upon first glance, nothing really seems to be too out of the ordinary at first, but with one major difference. The human characters that were previously portrayed by American celebrities were entirely recast to Korean celebrities instead. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is a first for Netflix, as no other show has even dared to make a change like this to a foreign dub. Even the kids were changed to better fit the style that they're going for. Now you may notice when watching it for the first time that the footage will either slow down or speed up to match up with the new audio tracks. It's not too noticeable at first, but you will see it again from time to time. And sometimes in a case like the music episode, you might get 2 celebrities for the price of 1, which is honestly pretty neat. This special edition of Ask the StoryBots was specifically made for Season 3. Seasons 1 and 2 never got this treatment for some reason, and I don't know the exact specifics on why, unfortunately. My only hunch as to why they even bothered to make this version at all was that the Korean translators who watched the footage beforehand were probably like, well, having an American celebrity speaking our language doesn't really sound as authentic as a native speaker, am I right? Which just makes this edition that more unique. A rare gem, if you may call it. This doesn't really change the overall story, however, it's just different people portraying as the humans here. While I personally would prefer the original versions for obvious reasons, I still think it's a rather fascinating novelty nonetheless, especially for StoryBots. Like I said before, it's not really lost necessarily, you can still watch it as we speak, but accessing it may be a bit of a challenge depending on where you are. The only countries that air this special edition are China, Japan, and obviously Korea. If you're not from any of these countries, then the only way you can view their content is through a VPN, and if you're lucky enough with the servers, you might just stumble upon this one. Number 24. The early audio tracks from StoryBots Answer Time. Get used to seeing Answer Time here, folks, as it's going to be appearing a lot on this list. There have been many changes made during Answer Time's production, including some scenes and concepts that were never featured in any way. This was mostly due to the fact that the original plan was to have 3 seasons be released, but was subsequently changed to have everything be crammed together into just 2 seasons, meaning everything that was planned for this extra season was ultimately left on the cutting room floor. Hence why there's so much content that was never fully utilized in the show, and this may have also been a contributing factor for some of the changes made within the episodes, as we'll see later. But for now, we'll start off with something simple: the audio tracks. Before the release of Season 2, several videos from both YouTube and Vimeo were uploaded to sort of build anticipation for the upcoming season. 2 videos from Netflix Jr. were also uploaded. The first one was a compilation of several segments that were used in Season 2, and the second was a clip from the SpaceBots in Outer Space segment. All these clips are slightly different to the final versions, as they use different audio tracks for each of the segments. The sound effects, for instance, were altered a bit from the final episodes, and they are certainly noticeable when comparing the 2 versions. I'll show you some examples.
Oh my god, please excuse my interruption, but I'm sorry to say that you are both slightly off in your calculations. On average, most large trees can grow between 40 and 100 feet tall. Oh my god, please excuse my interruption, but I'm sorry to say that you are both slightly off in your calculations. On average, most large trees can grow between 40 and 100 feet tall.
Spork, I'm gonna need a full kernel scan of that. Alarm.
Captain, an unidentified object is heading towards us.
Spork, I'm gonna need a full kernel scan of that. Alarm.
Captain, an unidentified object is heading towards us.
Are you tired of rocks with sharp edges? Ow! Are large heavy boulders getting you down? Are you tired of rocks with sharp edges? Ow! Are large heavy boulders getting you down?
Sometimes the sound effects are absent in the early versions, like in this scene from Eleanor Smarty Pants, where the sprinklers are silent in the early reel. When it comes to the songs, some of them include early demo reels of the instrumentations before being finalized, like here in the Flower Smells song, originally called Pollination. This is of course different to the actual version used in the episode, which sounds like this. Not a huge change or anything like that, but a change nonetheless. Speaking of music, the soundtrack is sometimes missing during these versions as well, such as in this Answer Oracle clip.
How big is the universe?
The part of the universe we can see is about 93 billion light years across. Beyond that, some say it goes on forever.
And some of these Beep the Clown clips.
I just swapped one verb with another verb.
So you swapped the verb ring with the verb bark?
Yeah! Pretty funny, huh?
Now these changes don't affect the plot in any way, they are once again just cute little novelties scattered behind the scenes. You can find these versions pretty much everywhere, the 2 Netflix Jr. videos that I mentioned before, and several Vimeo clips from various different people, and if you look hard enough, you might find all of them. I made a whole video compiling all the currently found clips of these early versions and demo reels. It also includes some deleted scenes that were never featured in the Answer Time show. So if you want to check that out, the link to that video will be down in the description. They are certainly worth the watch. Number 23. Area Extended Cut. Here's our first extended cut from Answer Time, this one being from the episode Area. In this episode, Beep has to answer a question from a popular disco diva named Disco Delilah, who wants to know what the word area means. She ends up going to the huge F4 gaming convention to watch the announcement of the new Piggy Packers game. After aimlessly wrestling through the crowd, she wounds up on the big stage and experienced the new game in VR. It's here where she learns about the fundamentals about area, through trial and error of course. Afterwards, she leaves the convention to answer the question, and the episode ends there. Quite a fun episode if I'm being honest. In the storyboards for this episode, provided by Jacob Strelin, a few small changes were made to the plot. The first one is in the very first scene, after Beep exits the pipe. There was supposed to be a giant robot figure that almost crushes Beep after she got up, to which the storybot in the robot apologizes before we're shown the aerial shot. This was probably cut to time. The second change was surprisingly, the DJ's name. As we all know, the DJ in the episode is named Disco Delilah. In the storyboards, however, it's revealed that the DJ was originally going to be named Disco Devante, which funnily enough, is actually a boy's name. But the DJ in the final cut was a female played by Wendy McClendon Covey. I would guess that they originally had a different actor in mind when pitching cast members, but then something happened along the line and Wendy was brought in to take the role. Or they probably already had Wendy chosen for it and just used the name Devante as a placeholder. Either way, I still think it's pretty interesting that the DJ went by a different name, but I assure you that this won't be the last time you see a name change like this. The last two changes are just mere sight gags. A drone can be seen falling to the ground, as well as a little storybot dragging along a huge sword to the main stage, which I'm going to assume is a reference to the Legend of Zelda series. Both of these scenes never made it to the final cut, and were most likely cut to time. The rest of the scenes play out as normal. They are virtually identical compared to the final episode. Overall, these changes are not too major to the plot or anything, but it kinda gives a sense of how many little changes were actually made during production. And believe me, this is only the beginning. Number 22. Cell Phones, Alternate Cut. Here's a scene from StoryBots' first ever television series, Ask the StoryBots. This show has its fair share of cut content, but not as much as Answer Time did obviously. Our first scene is in the first act of the Season 3 episode, How Do Cell Phones Work? Here, the storybots are transported inside a cell phone to figure out how they exactly work. The phone then starts ringing, a woman picks it up and says, "Hello?" After that, a little sound wave then emerges into the phone, leading to a very interesting conversation.
Who are you?
Hello? Hello? What's your name? Hello?
Hi, yeah, but really, what's your name?
Hello?
What's your name?
After her brief introduction, she then travels through the other parts of the phone as the storybots follow. This exchange was a little different in the storyboards provided by Jackson Reed. After the storybots land inside the phone, and a rather bored Bing sits unenthusiastically, the phone then starts ringing, though with a different ringtone this time.
Hey, what's it doing?
They are then terrified when they see the presence of a giant hand picking up the phone, and when the person says to the phone, the storybots are then blown away by a gust of wind, and when the dust dies down, it's here where the sound waves are introduced. The designs for the sound waves is slightly different here. They are depicted as a squiggly line with eyes, arms, and legs, as Beep subtly describes.
Excuse me, Mr. Squiggly Line?
I'm not a squiggly line. I'm a sound wave.
Contrast this to the final design, where it's more of a blue electrical wave rather than a cartoonish one, which makes sense as we do see them traveling through electrical wires and such. Also note the amount of sound waves in this scene. In the storyboards, we can see at least 20 different sound waves present. In the final version, there's only one that enters. But the biggest change in this scene is the setting. The storyboards depict the setting as dark and gloomy, with only holes from the charging port and the microphone to serve as light. The final episode has an entirely different setting. It now depicts the phone with a futuristic design filled to the brim with lights, like you see in one of those fancy, bougie hotel lobbies. Aside from those changes, nothing really much is different. The second act onwards is dead parallel to the storyboard, so there's nothing really worth discussing here. Like the previous scenes, there's no major change to the overall story, but this once again shows how even little things can affect the atmosphere of your scenes. And as we'll see later, the changes during production will only get bigger from here. Number 21. Hub and Bub, Alternate Cuts. Here we have some more storyboards by Jackson Reed, which are two scenes from the two mischievous twins, Hub and Bub. Both of these scenes were incorporated into the episode called
Why Do People Look Different?
The two Hub and Bub scenes are very much present here, though the storyboards tell a different story. In the storyboards, Hub and Bub are busily working on their computers when, out of nowhere, a baby crawls into their office and starts crying. Frantically, they try many things to make the baby stop crying. They try a teddy bear, a bottle of milk, and then a bunch of random baby toys. When all that fails, the two of them drop all the toys to the ground, leaving a huge mess, which miraculously made the baby's day with a cackle of laughter. They all laugh, and the segment ends. The final version plays a different scenario. This time, a stroller with a baby inside mysteriously rolls into their office, and the baby inside starts crying. After Bub tries to calm it down with a teddy bear, the baby violently throws the teddy out of the stroller and cries even more. It's not till a grandmother storybot comes in and takes the baby away and gives it a lullaby. Hub and Bub still laugh regardless. The second one is the scene directly after this one, and is about the color yellow. In the storyboards, Merv the mailman delivers a package from the color yellow to Hub and Bub. The package turned out to be a basket full of lemons. They both eat a lemon, and no surprise, they fall to the ground turning yellow, but they both laugh despite all that. The final version, once again, has a different scenario. A scientist strolls along and drops a few of his equipment along the way. While Hub played with the pipette and Bub with the Erlenmeyer flask, they both spot a beaker filled with some yellow substance in it. They fight over it, and after carelessly dropping it, the beaker explodes and turns the whole room yellow. And in true Hub and Bub fashion, they laugh. I virtually have no idea why they decided to keep two separate scenes conveying the same message, let alone two segments in the same episode. Honestly, they could have kept either one of these segments and the episode would have worked just as fine. They both have the same theme, so it wouldn't really matter what they choose, right? This is fairly mild compared to what we have next, but it is a bit fascinating that they bothered to make another scene off of the one they already had. Also, don't forget this episode. We will be coming back to this. Ho, don't you worry. Number 20. Bo's World, alternate cut. Here's our first storyboard from Jordan Koch, who's responsible for many of the storyboarding and answer time. This one is from the segment Bo's World, specifically the one about baby teeth. In this segment, Bo and her friends are playing around when all of a sudden, two of baby Piglet's teeth fall out. After a brief panic attack, the friends decide to go to Dr. Professor Owl's help for help on the matter. Much to her annoyance, Professor Owl eventually explains that baby teeth are supposed to fall out to make way for the bigger teeth underneath. The segment ends with Bo and her friends dancing around Professor Owl, giving her a run for her money. The storyboards play almost exactly the same way as it did in the final. Keyword, almost. There was a change made in the storyboards, but it's not the plot. It's the tone. They were going for a more creepy vibe with this segment, with additional scenes to amplify it, such as here where this bear is slowly hiding behind Bo, or this weird close-up of baby Piglet feeling her teeth with her tongue, like oh my god that's so disgusting, or just the presence of the puppet Professor Owl uses. That creepy stare into the puppet's eyes is likely what made this frog want to cuddle the bear in fear. And the bear even hugs the frog back, like that's so wholesome, why did they get rid of this scene? I mean, have the storybots ever been this creepy before? Regardless, I can see why they changed this from the final. They didn't want to risk having their scene be too scary for kids, and I don't blame them. I mean, that scene of baby Piglet alone will definitely give some uncanny thoughts. Even so, it would have been nice to see at least one of these scenes get featured, especially that frog and bear scene. But hey, at least they didn't axe this one, because that would have been a real shame if they did. Number 19. Bubbles, extended cut. Here's another storyboard from Jordan Koch. This one is from the episode Bubbles. In this episode, Bang has to answer a question from a famous magician named the Great Bubblaine, who wants to know how bubbles are formed. He first goes to the laundromat and helps a little storybot out with their laundry. Not knowing that he put way too much detergent into the machine, the thing explodes and causes a huge bubble tsunami throughout the city. Afterwards, he stumbles upon Storyberg and is informed about the bubble blowing competition happening at the Storybot Olympic Stadium. He rushes over there and meets veteran sports commentators Liz Hurdle and JJ Dash. They explain to him how bubbles are created as Sudsy Sammy Sullivan, try saying that 5 times fast, prepares to blow the biggest bubble in the world. She does so in spectacular fashion, for better or for worse. After a huge celebration of her amazing feat, Bang then rushes back to the answer department to answer the question, and the episode ends there. The storyboards in this episode are almost identical to the final version, aside from some dialogue changes. It's not until the third act, however, where we see our first big change. An entire scene was cut from the final episode. As Sammy is about to blow her bubble, a tension meter is shown and Sammy starts to blow. She begins to run out of breath as the tension meter rises. When she's nearly given up, her coach then gives her some thoughtful advice. This gives her the boost of confidence that she needs, and then proceeds with her Zen technique. The rest of the episode plays as normal. I would have loved to see this scene be included, as it not only would give Sammy some more personality, but it would also be relatable to modern athletes who go through this exact struggle. However, like the previous entries, this doesn't really affect the overall story that much, though it would have been nice to have this featured nonetheless. But, oh well, beggars can't be choosers. Number 18. Budgets, Extended Cut. Here's a storyboard from Henrik Lepsicle, this one being from the Budgets episode. In this one, Bing has to answer a question from Super Mega Awesome Ultra Guy on how budgets work. He then goes to the StoryBot Bang to ask Aline and Dean on how they work. After a very elongated and boring lecture, Bing then falls asleep, but wakes up into a nightmare in the over-budget hotel. He tries to escape, but ends up going on the ride of his life. When he finally wakes up from his nightmare, he rushes out of the bank in great hurry, but then crashes into Sam and Chloe's bucket of lemons in the process. They later tell Bing that they're entrepreneurs and know how budgets are formatted. Bing then tags along with them before coming to the next act. The storyboards, once again, tell the story almost exactly how it was shown on Netflix, but with a few cut changes here and there. The first one that we have is the StoryBot guard being crushed by the door as Bing enters. There's also a random StoryBot here asking their amount in their bank account, as well as a fly passing by during the long lecture. None of these scenes make it into the final, and will most likely cut to time. There's a few scenes during the nightmare sequence, such as Bing falling onto these bar graphs, and a few instances of changed dialogue. But the biggest change made in this episode is right here. During the chase, Bing stumbles upon an elevator with two buttons. One is a surplus, the other is a deficit. Not knowing what either of them are, he presses the one that says deficit. With it pours a huge pool of numbers and symbols. This is a direct nod to the bloody elevator scene as seen in the Shining movie, which this episode is filled with. Right down to the tricycle scene and the twin sisters scene. The audience is pretty well aware that this whole segment is just a huge callback to the Shining film, so I guess having that elevator scene would have been a bit unnecessary in a way, though it would have been cool if it was featured regardless. But with all those obvious tie-ins to this well-known horror film, you would have thought that parents would have caught on to this by now. But I guess not. Also a little side note, Sam's name was also changed during production as well. He went by Zan in the storyboards, and then later Sam in the final. Not too much of a difference there. But what's even weirder is that in the book, How Does Money Work?, which is basically a retelling of the Budgets episode, the character is referred to as Zan with a Z. Man, first Sam, then Zan with an X. Can they just stick to one name and keep it that way for God's sake? Even in Answer Time's baffling production history, not even Sam, frickin' Sam, is safe from these name changes. Now try wrapping your head around that anomaly. Number 17. Fractions, alternate ending. Here comes our first major change in Answer Time's production. Our previous entries had relatively small changes made to their scenes, and were nothing too significant to the overall plot. But this episode has by far the most changes made during production, and is the first instance where we could have gotten an entirely different ending according to the storyboards. This is another storyboard done by Jordan Koch and is from the episode Fractions. In this one, Bing has to answer a question from the Cosmic Caller on deciphering a secret code that he just found. He goes to Alabama Smith's office only to realize that he's left on an expedition. He then goes on a treacherous journey to the secret hidden temple to find Alabama Smith. Nearly getting killed in the process, he eventually finds him after he was saved from falling into some spikes. Alabama Smith then teaches him the basics of fractions as they head along the temple. After solving a few problems, they eventually make their way into the room with the sacred golden pizza cutter, which can cut any pizza into perfect 1/8 slices. The episode ends with Bing leaving the temple and Alabama Smith getting chased out by a huge boulder. Alright, let's go through the changes. We'll start with Alabama. This is obviously a play on the name Indiana Jones, a popular film series, with Indiana and Alabama both being US states, and Jones and Smith being common US surnames. However, Alabama went by a different alias according to the storyboards. He was originally going to be named Bahama Smith. But I don't get why they opted for this name. The Bahamas are not a US state, nor a territory of the US, so it's pretty strange why they originally went for this one of all names. But I think having that name changed to Alabama Smith felt like a necessary one, as it's now easier for people to understand the reference better. There's a few scenes here that weren't present in the final, such as this spiral staircase Bing goes down, as well as this scene that was heavily altered in the final. In the storyboards, Bing comes to a halt by a big door. Behind him, he finds an empty vessel, a bag of sand, and a sign that says 1/3. He first tries to fill up the vessel all the way up to the top, but nothing happens. He then scoops out the sand until it reaches the 1 mark. There, the door opens and he proceeds to go on his way. This was changed greatly in the final. When he arrives in the room, the vessel has already been filled and the door is already open. He assumed Alabama Smith was already here and observed the vessel very closely, but he accidentally spills the vessel on his way out, closing the door behind him. Now, I'm not too sure why they changed this scene in particular, but I honestly would have much rather preferred the storyboard version over the final. It gives Bing some better character development as he slowly learns what fractions are before he actually learns what they are in the third act, showing that he's not solely an idiot all the time. The final version doesn't really add much to his character other than just being clumsy, which is pretty disappointing. But oh man, that is nothing compared to what we have next. The alternate ending. This is without a doubt the biggest change made to Answer Time's production. I still have no idea why they changed this whole ending for this episode, but man, this is such a loss. In the storyboards, Bing and Alabama reach a room with another puzzle to solve. Bing thinks he knows the answer, so he makes his way to the door and takes a look. He then carelessly puts all the slices into the circle, which causes the walls to close in on themselves. Alabama tells him that he got the top and the bottom numbers wrong, to which Bing suddenly realized. He quickly fixes his mistake, and just in the nick of time, they both avoid being crushed by the walls. Alabama applauds him for his bravery, and the door opens, revealing the golden pizza cutter. Bing then rushes over to get it, claiming victory is theirs. But in true Indiana Jones style, the temple collapses before they have a second thought. They narrowly escape the falling temple, and they both end up outside looking rather shocked by the whole ordeal. Bing then hands over the pizza cutter to Alabama, and he leaves to answer his question. And just as Alabama thought he got the pizza cutter, it turns into dust and blows away in the wind. He then retorts by saying that it belonged in a museum. Okay, that's actually pretty funny. The final version was cut down immensely from the original. When they arrived in the room, Bing sets the trap off in a different way. He now sets it off by stepping on a booby trap, which causes the walls to close in. He makes no mistakes when trying to solve the puzzle, and also narrowly avoids being crushed as well. When we are shown the pizza cutter, however, neither of them are trying to grab it. They're just standing there.
Menacingly!
After that, Bing leaves the temple and sets off a trap off-screen, which results in Alabama running away from a giant boulder, which is obviously another nod to Indiana Jones. Again, I don't have the full reason on why they changed this ending for this episode, but that original ending, man, it feels so much better than the final. Why did they have to change this? From Bing's improved characterization to that collapsing temple scene, this whole final cut feels so lacking in the end, and would have improved significantly if they just stuck with the original ending. What a shame. But holy cow, we had so much cut Bing material in Answer Time. That deleted scene in the Budgets episode, that altered scene with the sand vessel, and now this entire alternate ending. It seems Bing got the unlucky end of the stick in this series, and I personally would have loved to see more of his character implemented here. This little guy never seems to get a rest now, does he? Poor fella. You'll get him next time. These next few things that we have is stuff that was just simply never released. They were once pitched as an idea in the development phase, but they never fully saw the light of day. This will also include some things that are lost in production, content that was once available before, but now no longer is. So let's go over some of them, shall we? Number 16. Hap's Lunchtime. Our first real deleted scene takes place in the television series Ask the StoryBots. This scene was supposed to be for the season 2 episode, Why Can't I Eat Dessert All the Time?, which had a working title simply called Nutrition. The scene takes place in Hap's office, which is the first location you see in every single episode of the show. The storyboards by Eddie West tell an alternate take of this supposed scene. Hap is doing his business as usual when it then comes time for his lunch break. He orders a lukewarm hot dog and specifically requests no mustard. But he then gets a hot dog with mustard on it, much to his annoyance. He complains to his caterer on the phone, who mistook his complaint for wanting more mustard. So they send him a tube filled with mustard in it, and it pours all over Hap. Team 341B then arrives at his office, with Bang commenting on Hap's enjoyment with mustard. The scene then cuts to the actual episode. None of these aspects were carried over in the final episode. Instead, we have a completely different scenario entirely. In the final scene, Hap is seen answering questions and dealing with Hub and Bub's antics with silly goats. Team 341B then comes in with some new boomerang toys. They play with them for a while until Bang miraculously throws his boomerang so hard that it flies right out of the office into the unknown. The boomerang itself doesn't become relevant again until, spoiler alert, it comes back in Season 2's final episode, How Do People Catch a Cold?
Finally, I thought we
Oh, look, Bang! Your boomerang came back!
I love that. While I do enjoy this moment of Hap being covered in mustard and all, I would have preferred the final version over the original for once, because I am a sucker for anything continuity-wise. Still, it would have been great to see this incorporated in some way or form. I guess Hap can just take a well-deserved break at this point, to get away from all his co-workers' shenanigans. Number 15. The Desert Song. Here's a very popular example of Answer Time's cut content, that being the Desert Song. You all know about it, you've heard it till the cows come home, but you never understood why this song was cut from the final. Well, I'll tell you. This song was originally going to be used in the final episode of Season 2, Time and Distance, following a Dink and Doink segment. Here, the two friends ask the question,
"How hot do you think it is out here in the desert?"
To which they come up with ridiculous answers, which leads to them arguing with each other. A condor then flies in, while looking intimidating, reassures the two and tells them the correct answer to end their little inquiry. Both of them laugh hysterically, thinking the condor is making up some nonsense, and they leave the scene in laughter. Now, what was supposed to happen was the scene would transition over to the attached music video. We know the song is from this episode because several lines from the song were ripped right from the scene that it followed after. Here's an example.
There are some days when it reaches 130 degrees or more.
And the temperature still might rise till it hits even higher highs, like 130 degrees or maybe more.
This entire song was never included in the final episode, and instead just jump cuts to the next segment without transitions. As Nate Thies said himself, the reason for this music video being cut was that there were just too many segments in Answer Time already, and that they were all ultimately cut to time. But I think there was a bigger reason on why this particular song was cut from the episode, given that the animation was already finalized and was probably cut very late into the game. Well, here's my little take. The songs in this episode are Wrinkly Fingers and Time and Distance. The Desert Song would have made the episode have 3 songs, which the show has already gone on record for doing before. But 2 of these songs look very similar to each other, that being the Desert Song and Wrinkly Fingers. They were both animated by the same team, Feed Me Light, but keeping 2 songs with similar art styles probably felt a bit repetitive on the viewer's end. So when it came time to decide which of the 2 songs would stay, Wrinkly Fingers was chosen, and the Desert Song got the boot. I very well may be overthinking this, sure. This is a preschool show we're talking about after all, but hey, I can't think of a better explanation for it. So am I right, or am I wrong? You tell me. Number 14. Lala and Zaza. Here's another segment that never made the cut. This one is simply called Lala and Zaza, and was created by Victoria Aldous. This wasn't made for any particular episode, but was just one found laying on the cutting room floor. In this one, 2 bougie art critics named Lala and Zaza have come to observe the latest paintings at their local art museum, but their reviews on the paintings were not too pleasant, so to speak.
Derivative. Dreary. Amateurish. Awful.
That wasn't until they spotted their eyes on a new addition to the museum, which just turns out to be an ordinary spiderweb.
That's just a spider web.
Totally blinded by the fact, they go on to praise the spider for his hard work, and they ask him how he exactly made this masterpiece. The spider, flattered by all the attention, then starts explaining to them on how he creates his spiderweb. Lala and Zaza are fully invested by it, and they buy the spiderweb outright, with a garbage truck dumping loads of money bags in its place. They depart the area, leaving the owner of the museum completely speechless. I have no idea why this wasn't featured, and it's a shame this one was cut too, as it goes for a pretty entertaining scene. The idea of having 2 fancy art critics fall in love with a spiderweb is honestly pretty hilarious. But I might have a small idea on why this didn't make the final, and it comes down to one of the critics' names, Zaza. After doing some research, I found out that the word Zaza is a slang term for, get this, marijuana, which is obviously not suitable for a young demographic if you can already tell. This probably was unintentional, but maybe Netflix saw the name Zaza and just fully rejected the segment from the name alone, hence why the scene never made the final cut. Again, it does sound like a bit of a stretch here, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually the case, though it does make this an enjoyable scene regardless.
Just being an artist ain't half bad.
Number 13. Detective Boop, The Vegetable Underground. Here's one of 3 deleted scenes by Chris Harding. He was a storyboard artist for Answer Time and was responsible for many of the deleted scenes on this list. This one being a Detective Boop segment. We were lucky enough to get 2 of these segments already in the show. The first one was in Season 1 and was called The Missing Rainbow. This is about Boop solving the mystery of the disappearance of a rainbow cloud and figuring out how rainbows are formed. The second one was in Season 2 and was called The Unlawful Sneeze. Here, Boop has to solve the mystery on why Betty Esquire is always sneezing and to figure out what's causing it. There was a 3rd segment planned for the show, however it never made it into the final cut, but we did have an idea about what it looked like before the storyboard got released. These screenshots provided by Nicholas Eilick showed that it was going to take place in an open field with lots of vegetables, and went by a title called The Vegetable Underground. We were also shown some characters that would have been included in this segment as well, but for a long while, we had no clue on what the characters' names were, what the plot was, and just what exactly happened in this segment. That was until the full storyboard, in its entirety, leaked online. We now have the full story, and here's what happened. So it starts off with Boop cramming documents into his filing cabinet when all of a sudden, Farmer Bill jumps in and makes the filing cabinet explode in front of him. He explains his situation to Boop, and they both head off to his carrot field on the farm. Normally, Farmer Bill would plant corn and take the heads off from the stalk, but now he's growing carrots and they haven't grown from their stalks yet. To make matters worse, Big Frank comes in and reminds him that he's in debt with over 50,000 carrots, and if he doesn't pay it in time, then her fluffy bunny will have other options. Boop then figures out that the carrots have already grown underground and explains the reason on why carrots grow like this. Afterwards, a deal gets negotiated and Farmer Bill is no longer in debt. The segment ends with the case closed and Boop eating a carrot. This would have most likely cut to some music video right here. As for the music video itself, I have no idea what it would have been like, honestly. Now, I would have loved to see this one be featured in the show, as it could have tied into that one scene where Boop fell in love with that carrot song in the internet episode. Weirdly enough, a Detective Boop segment was also used in this same episode, but it's the one about sneezes, not carrots. I personally think the carrot segment would have been a lot better for this episode, as it would have given a better connection with Boop's fascination for carrots. A bigger parallel would have been great. But with this storyboard now available, this also brings up another interesting aspect. The screenshots from before depict the final animation for this segment, meaning that a final cut was made, but never made public. If I were to take a guess on where exactly this version is, either the original animator Nicholas Eilick has a copy of this version, or it would be stored somewhere deep in Netflix's huge archive. And unless someone can pull it out there for the public to see, we can only speculate. Number 12. SpaceBots in Outer Space. Hello. Here's another deleted scene from Chris Harding. This one is from the segment SpaceBots in Outer Space. We got two segments that were featured in the show, both of them being from Season 2. The first one was in the Glass episode and was about teaching us how popcorn pops. The second one was in the Refrigerator episode and was about moths and how they detect light. Like Detective Boop, there was a third segment planned for the show, but once again, it never made it into the final cut. This one, simply titled Hello, went as follows. Captain Beep and her crew are discovering a new area in space called IDK. During their search, they spot a vessel that looks eerily similar to their own ship. When they try video calling them, the aliens look almost exactly like them, though with a few visual differences.
Oh, I see it! It's the goatee that's a bit different! We don't have any facial hair!
They try saying hello to them, but they don't understand. The crew thinks they speak a different language, so they try many different language options to try to communicate with them. But the inhabitants are getting increasingly angry with every single try. When it looks like they're about to attack, they finally get communication, and it turns out their microphone was muted. They become friends before the video call gets cut off by a poor Wi-Fi connection. The segment ends with Hub and Bub messing around with the video chat as Beep yells her heart out.
Ensign Hub! Ensign Bub!
Video chat.
Okay, I love this scene. It's a nice little in-joke about modern video calls, especially since they made this during the pandemic years, which they heavily relied on for pretty much their entire production. Though I think I might have a reason for why this scene got cut from the final. Like all the scenes before, this most likely would have cut to a music video, probably about the word hello in different languages. But if you recall from Ask the StoryBots, they already made a song with that same criteria called the Hello Song, so they basically be repeating themselves here. That could be a reason on why this scene was never featured, but that is currently just speculation. What's interesting here is that the storyboard includes the final voice actors of the show, including Judy Greer's own voice recordings.
On screen, checkmark.
I am on a screen, Captain.
No, put the vessel on the big screen, checkmark.
All right.
So that means there might have been a final cut made for this segment, but was never released to the public yet. A shame this one wasn't featured, because I bet a lot of people would have gotten a kick out of this one. I mean, who wouldn't enjoy any Beep content, am I right? I'm looking at you, Artsy. Number 11. Ridiculous Raj. Yet another deleted scene from Chris Harding. This one is simply titled Ridiculous Raj. It's a 30-second clip of a commercial from Ridiculous Raj's Produce Emporium, a supermarket selling fruits and vegetables filled with antioxidants and nutrients. This essentially teaches us the importance of eating healthy fruits and vegetables in the form of an infomercial. Now, unlike the two clips that we saw before, this scene was never featured on the show. That's because this one never made it past the storyboard phase, and according to Chris himself, this scene was cut very early into production, though exact specifics on why are currently unknown. I might have an inkling on why this scene got rejected early on. This is an infomercial style segment. Answer Time is filled with a bunch of these segments already. They didn't necessarily need another infomercial in their lineup. It would just be a bit repetitive. Still, at least it's enjoyable enough to make it stand out from everything else, so there's that going for it, I guess. Though I do have to wonder what the animation style would have been like if the segment did get approved. Would it be 3D? 2D? Stop motion? Hand-drawn? Puppetry? I guess we'll never fully know for sure. Number 10. Marie Curie and radioactivity. Here comes a weird one. So this is from the StoryBots series of shorts called Great Innovators. This is not like your typical song collection from StoryBots because, well, they're not songs at all. Instead, they're little history lessons of famous inventors around the world, including Guglielmo Marconi, the Wright brothers, Johannes Gutenberg, George Washington Carver, and Thomas Edison. These 5 videos were written as poems, with every other sentence followed by rhymes. Here are some examples.
In the land of fedoras and tasty spumoni, there lived a young genius whose name was Marconi. He'd tinker and daydream and read through the day. Go do something useful, his father would say. Orville and Wilbur, 2 brothers named Wright, once dreamed of machines with the power of flight. In a little back room of their bicycle shop, their designing and tinkering just wouldn't stop. In the days of castles, kings, and knights, a book was something rare. It was made by hand for wealthy folk, with lots of gold to spare.
Some of these videos were turned into songs for the show Ask the StoryBots, but only 2 of the 5 were given this treatment, that being Marconi and Thomas Edison. There was, however, a 6th video not like the other 5. This video, called Marie Curie and Radioactivity, was released by Netflix Jr. seemingly out of nowhere in 2020. It wasn't made for any particular episode or any future season. It just exists. And now we have it. As the title suggests, this is about Marie Curie and how she and Pierre discovered radioactivity. This particular video was the song version of it, but weirdly uses the same intro as all the other videos did before, making this one stand out a bit more. The original version was thankfully saved on a storyboard by Megan McShane on her Vimeo page. This one actually has the original format like the others, having it more like poetry.
There once lived a girl named Marie Curie, who was gifted in science and smart as could be. But in those days in Poland, despite all her knowledge, they told her,
a woman could not go to college.
If you want to reconstruct the original version, then it's pretty easy. All you have to do is combine the 2 versions together and voila, you got the original. Not exactly the most exciting piece of lost media out there, but certainly the strangest out of the bunch. Number 9. The Great Cities music videos. Alright, here's an interesting one. StoryBots is known for its many songs. The space songs, the dinosaur songs, the shape songs, the animal songs, the vehicle songs, etc. They're all pretty much the first things we think about when it comes to StoryBots music. A lesser known song collection from the StoryBots, however, is the Great City Songs. This is all about showcasing the various cities around the world and seeing what they had to offer. We only got 2 songs from this collection, both of which were utilized in the show Ask the StoryBots. Great Cities Paris was used in Season 1, and Great Cities Beijing was used in Season 3. And that's pretty much all we had from this forgotten collection. But it turns out, there was more. Several screenshots depict that there were supposed to be more videos planned, but neither of them ever saw the light of day. The ones that we have confirmed were made are Istanbul, London, Mumbai, New York City, and Sydney. And what's crazy is that there might be more still out there. The only footage that we have of these cancelled songs is this 10-second clip of Great Cities London on Kendall Nelson's After Effects video, and these various gifts from Chris O'Hara's portfolio. That and the 2 songs that I mentioned previously are the only things that we can really go off of. Also, music must have been made during this time, as the animation would have gone along with the music provided to them. And it most likely would have been done by Perry Grip, who was responsible for both Paris and Beijing. None of these music tracks have ever surfaced online, as well as the music videos themselves. But like all the articles mentioned before, they're probably held somewhere deep in Netflix's archive, awaiting for someone to eventually open them up. Even so, we need to get these music videos because there is a ludicrous amount of footage yet to be discovered. If any of you know how to obtain these music videos, please let me know. I would seriously love to get my hands on this exclusive footage, and the music as well. But only time will tell. Number 8. The Scientist music video. Here's another music video that weirdly never came to be. This one comes from the profession songs from the StoryBots. These basically explain the different professions and what they exactly do. We got 10 in total, 9 of them having fully animated music videos, and 5 of them being included in the StoryBots Super Songs episode.
Professions!
But of all the songs listed, there was one song that had an audio track, but no music video. Or at least, one that never got released. Say Hello to the Scientist song. This is quite literally the oddball of the profession songs, with this one being the only one of these songs to not have a dedicated music video. But it turns out, there was a music video, though it was never made public. A few screenshots by Nicholas Ilek showed us the final animation for what the music video would have looked like. And if you put the screenshots together, you can start to see how the music video would have been formatted. Here's a little clip for y'all.
Like how does water freeze? Is the moon made out of cheese? Can a turtle jump a hurdle? Does an octopus have teeth?
This music video was never released by the team, and is either being kept confidentially by the animator Nicholas Ilek, or is just being kept tight in the archives. Though you can still listen to the original song on the StoryBots official playlist, to this very day. Number 7. The Color Brown music video. This music video has almost the same story as the Scientist song. This one is from the Color Songs, another classic collection from StoryBots. Like the Profession songs, we have 10 of these Color Songs in total, 9 of them having animated music videos, and 5 of them being included in the StoryBots Super Songs episode.
Colors!
Just like the Scientist song, there was a 10th song that never got an official music video, and it went by the ever so creative title, The Color Brown. No, seriously, can we just talk about that name for a second? Like, we had such awesome titles like Alright It's White, Love Is Red, Let's Wait for Yellow. Why didn't they do the same thing for The Color Brown? Couldn't we get something like Going Down for Brown, or Brownies Be Brown, or Brown is the Best? Doesn't that sound a lot better than just using the generic title The Color Brown? Just saying. But unlike the Scientist song, we don't have any screenshots or footage of the supposed music video as of yet, so we can only speculate. I'm going to assume that it was going to be in a similar style to the other music videos to remain consistent, and if there is a music video of that kind, then it's most likely being kept somewhere safe in Netflix's huge archive. But it is peculiar that this song and the Scientist song both had the exact same fate, with both of them never receiving a public music video. If I had a nickel for every time that happened, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't much, but it's strange that it happened twice, right? Totally didn't get that reference from anywhere. Number 6. Why do people look different? Alternate scene. Remember this episode? Yeah, I told you we'd be coming back to this one. This one really fascinates me, as it shows a part of the show that could have been, but sadly was cut for unknown reasons. Let's go back to Henrik Lepsicle one last time. Now, he's responsible for one of the scenes in the Season 3 episode, Why Do People Look Different? In the first act, the StoryBots land inside a hospital where they meet Nurse Bernard. They learn about how DNA from a baby gets passed on by their parents and shares some of their traits. But during that, Bo accidentally wakes up the babies and causes mass chaos in the hospital. The StoryBots then go to the DNA, leaving Bernard in quite the muddle. The next act starts right after this, and the episode continues as normal. Well, what if I told you that this entire scene was going to be completely different from the original? We don't have any footage or storyboards of this version, but we do have the scripts, and they go for a pretty interesting read. So apparently this scene was supposed to take place in a gym, where the StoryBots meet a highly ripped gymnast named Jim Jimmy, played by Terry Crews, a former NFL player. When the StoryBots ask him their question, Jimmy then proceeds to flex on them and explains that the more you work out, the more your body will change. To show this, we then see his brother Ricardo throw a barbell, and an elderly grandmother named Gwyneth who appears more tougher than she looks. Obviously this wasn't what the StoryBots meant when asking why people look different, as B tries to correct him. Now this next scene is honestly quite shocking, and it may be the reason why this scene was cut in the first place. So the scene then cuts to a flashback when Jim Jimmy was about to be born by his mom and dad, funnily being played by himself. Here he explains the importance of chromosomes and how they get passed down from his parents, just like in the final. But here's the icing of the cake, as the next line went like this. We see black and white footage in the style of silent films. Pa, Jimmy's father, and Ma, his mother, wave at the camera as they stood in front of their modest home. They both caress Ma's very pregnant belly. We see zygote Jimmy, a diploid cell made of an egg and sperm cell that have joined. I repeat, a diploid cell made of an egg and sperm cell that have joined. We are shown a visual of a diploid cell made of an egg and sperm shell. No, your eyes are not deceiving you. They indeed mention sperm in an official StoryBots document. Oh man, I don't think I'll be getting any sleep tonight. I'm willing to bet that someone in the studio had way too much fun with this scene, and when Netflix got wind of the script, they fully rejected the idea and had to redo this scene from scratch. But it was probably for the better. This is very apparent in the storyboards for this episode, as they're more akin to the final version that we see on Netflix, meaning that this scene from the scripts was cut very early in development. But there is one aspect about this script that I think does better than the final. Near the end, we see the StoryBots jump into one of Jimmy's biceps and shrink down to the size of a DNA strand, whereas in the final, they just walk off screen and then they're just randomly flying in the air for no given reason. I think the original version flows a lot better here, as it gives a more thorough explanation on how the StoryBots entered the DNA strand before coming to the next act. So if you're wondering who exactly the StoryBots were in the next few acts, note that it was Jim Jimmy they were in this entire time. Still, it's pretty clear why this scene never made the cut, though I think it would have been hilarious if they kept the scene intact. I couldn't imagine what the response would have been like from parents if they watched this with their kids. What an alternate timeline we could have had. Number 5. Hap in Answer Time. Here's a character that weirdly was never utilized in Answer Time. Harry Hackleby, or Hap for short. He's the main boss in the Answer Department and assigns answer teams to send to the outer world. He was a very prominent character in Ask the StoryBots, appearing in every single episode, at the beginning and at the end. Hap's roles through the other series were quite varied. He had a decent role in StoryBots Super Songs, The Space Adventure, And he had a very good role in Super Silly Stories of Bo, where he had his very own devoted episode to himself. But when it came to Answer Time, Hap was weirdly MIA. He even had his own character card like the others, but none of this was ever implemented in the show. It's weird because most of the side characters from Ask the StoryBots made their comebacks in this show. Hub and Bub, Franklin, even Merv the Mailman got his cameo appearance, which we'll get to later. But Hap seems to have gotten the shelf this year, as he doesn't make a single appearance in the entire show. The only time he was mentioned was in the Taxes episode, where Bang was talking with a random puppy.
Hap is in trouble?
I would have liked to think they had something planned for Hap in development, but never followed through with it. I guess we'll never know what Hap was originally going to do in Answer Time, because I think everyone would have liked it if Hap appeared at least once. Speaking of side characters, number 4, Merv the Mailman. Another character that got shafted in Answer Time was Merv the Mailman. He's the mail carrier of the computer world and delivers letters and packages to StoryBots who need them. Unlike Hap, Merv didn't really get that much screen time in Ask the StoryBots, only appearing every so often. His role was even further diminished in Answer Time, with only a single cameo appearance, that being in the intro. But his character card shows something about him that we never saw in the show. It states that he was supposedly a superhero in disguise, but no StoryBot has ever proven that as fact. I would have liked to imagine they made some little segment explaining this characteristic, but just like Hap, they never went through with it. Though I think I know why this never happened, and that's simply because, well, we already have a superhero-like character in the show, Super Mega Awesome Ultra Guy, which we have a boatload of his segments already. And there's also another superhero-like segment, where Bing is acting like a superhero in his own comic book. I guess having a third superhero in the mix would be a bit repetitive, so they ultimately scrapped it. But what a wasted potential. It would have added an extra layer to this once nothing character, and I think he deserved a lot better here. Though I bet some people would beg to differ. Number 3. Did You Know Game Show. Here's our last deleted scene from Answer Time. This is probably the most elusive piece of StoryBots' lost media, because we rarely know anything about it. We don't have any footage, no storyboards, and no scripts of this scene. We only have screenshots, so we just have to speculate here. From the looks of it, this scene appears to be a game show style segment by a StoryBot host asking kids everyday questions, aptly titled, Did You Know? The kids were probably given a multiple choice question, and if they got it right, they would win a special prize. This would have most likely replaced the fun fact segments, meaning that Franklin, yes, Franklin, could have met the cutting room floor. But obviously this didn't happen. The fun fact segments ended up staying on the show, while the game show segment met its inevitable demise. And sadly, we don't have anything else aside from these screenshots to get a better idea of what it would have been like. I would have loved to see this idea be implemented in the show. It feels pretty unique compared to the rest. If any of you have an idea on where this segment is, please let me know. Number 2. StoryBots Super Songs, Season 2. One of the shortest lived series from the StoryBots lineup is StoryBots Super Songs. This was a spin-off show that was released around the same time as its companion show, Ask the StoryBots. The show focuses on Team 341B before they became an answer team. It features little skits between the StoryBots and the children, as well as sing-along songs in between. This series had a very short lifespan, only lasting 10 episodes. The team had more plans for this show, having it be continued with a Season 2. However, those plans never came into fruition, and the show got cancelled due to low viewership. We don't have any idea of what Season 2 would have been like, but we can speculate. It most likely would have used song collections that were never featured in Super Songs before, such as the time songs or behavior songs. Or maybe we could have gotten extensions to previous episodes, like colors or professions. This could have also given us a glimpse at the Scientist and Color Brown songs that we never saw prior. Or maybe it could have had a different structure entirely. Who knows? I'm just throwing ideas at the table here. While I personally don't see this show coming back anytime soon, it would be nice if we had at least some inkling on what Season 2 would have looked like, though the chances of getting such content are pretty slim. But never say never. And number 1. StoryBots Classroom. This should come as no surprise. By far the most sought out piece of StoryBots lost media is the website that started it all, StoryBots Classroom. This started off as a way of teaching Evan and Greg's own children with educational content that was both engaging and enjoyable. They made a bunch of apps to further expand their company, with their main selling point being the starring you books and music videos. They also made a fully fledged classroom website for teachers and parents to use for online learning. This included things such as coloring books, interactive games, full episodes, etc., all at an affordable price of just $20 a year. It ended up being a huge success for the two brothers. They received many awards from various accolades, including a Daytime Emmy. Everything was going well for the StoryBots Classroom. However, when Netflix bought out the entire rights to the StoryBots franchise, it all went downhill from there. Since JibJab originally had the rights for the StoryBots, the apps and the website were shut down almost immediately, and everything on it, like the games, videos, and activities, were all removed. Everything was erased, and the rest is history. The only remnants of the classroom now were several screenshots and videos from various users, including one of the creators of the website, Greg Mako, which you can still view in his public portfolio. But everything else, like the game files and the UI designs, are still lost. If I were to take a guess on where these things are right now, either Netflix or JibJab would have it somewhere sealed up in their respected archives, never to be seen by the public again. I've already done a full video covering StoryBots Classroom in its entirety, so if you want more info about the Classroom website and the apps, the link to that video will be down in the description. And there you have it, a full comprehensive list of StoryBots cut content and lost media. Now you might be wondering, can I still watch some of the things on this list as of right now? Why, yes you can! I've made 4 videos covering everything behind the scenes. The first one shows all the behind the scenes footage of the making behind Ask the StoryBots, 2 videos showcasing the storyboards of the 2 shows, and the final one is a compilation of all the deleted scenes and early audio tracks from Answer Time. I'm also going to include the public portfolios from people who've worked on the show, which actually turned out to be a big help in the making of this video. Kudos to you guys. Links to all the videos and the portfolios will be down in the description. Now with this being an active franchise, there's bound to be some more discoveries to be found later on. In fact, some of the things on this list were only recently discovered a few months ago, so it won't be a matter of time until something else gets discovered. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if there's something that got discovered that I didn't talk about in this video, feel free to let me know down in the comments. I would love to hear your feedback. Before I end this video, I want to make something clear to everyone. Lost media of any kind is always a fascinating sight to see. It is a blessing that we already have this much content at our disposal now, but there may still be more content out there that hasn't been discovered yet. And that's the joy of lost media. The fact that we're still finding new discoveries to this day is honestly pretty insane, and we should keep on searching until we can't search no more. And maybe one day, we will get everything that we wished for. I know some people may see it as an impossibility, but with our modern technology and dedicated fan base, that can all change right now. And that wraps up another video. Man, what a long video that was. If you've made it this far into the video, then I have to say, thank you for watching. I had a lot of fun researching for this one. This video alone took me nearly 3 months to find all the necessary material for this project, and even then I was just barely scratching the surface. But I am happy with the end result, as well as the 4 videos that preceded it. That Answer Time storyboard video I am especially proud of. I got a lot of people to help me out with this one. They all kindly lent me their voices for all these deleted storyboards. Huge thanks to the following people: Artsy Doggy, happy birthday by the way, Combo YT, Edible Arts and Crafts, Feral Ferret XP, Heap Hullapaloo, KDK Dragon 27, Cairo P, LT Nova, Pasta Strainer, River Kitsune, Supgod, Sylveon Kawaii 289, Troutagon, and especially to my friend Zint, who had by far the most voice lines with nearly 100 lines of dialogue, and they performed it flawlessly, as did everyone else. Once again, thank you all so much for participating in this project. You are all seriously talented. Now for the creator spotlights. For these 3 picks, I'm going to stay on topic and pick 3 people that worked on StoryBots who made original creations that I think are worth sharing. My first shout out goes to Nico Kaleo. He was an editor for StoryBots and has previously worked for companies like Disney, DreamWorks, and Nickelodeon. He's also made his own animated series, which I think is quite wonderful. Ollie and Scoops. This is about a 9-year-old girl named Ollie and her family cat Scoops going on crazy adventures with each other. Ollie has the special ability to communicate with cats, which her other family members don't possess. I won't spoil any of the episodes or anything, since this is something you just gotta see for yourself to enjoy. There are 10 episodes out right now, as well as some miscellaneous stuff. If you're currently looking for another animated series to binge on, then I highly suggest giving this one a watch. You might just get a kick out of this one. For my second shout out, I'm gonna give it to someone you probably know already. Michael Rocco. This guy has worked on many shows, like StoryBots, Looney Tunes, The Cuphead Show, Hell of a Boss, and the more recent Hazbin Hotel. The piece of work I'm going to be sharing with y'all is a short film that was made not too long ago, Sniff and Snoof. This is a 5-minute video about two guys playing with a square and a circle. It's a simple concept, yes, but was executed brilliantly. It honestly feels like something straight out of Pixar themselves, and the fact that it was all produced by one guy is seriously impressive. If you like short films and want to see more, definitely put this one on your radar. For my last shout out, I'm gonna give it to Chris Harding. You may recall him for being responsible for some of the deleted scenes in this video. Well, he's also made some other projects before coming into StoryBots, including this video that's roughly 20 years old now, but I think still holds up very well. That being Robot Family. So imagine if StoryBots in early 2000s Flash videos had a child. That's essentially what we have here. It's short, simple, comedic, and fun all around. Please give this one a watch when you get the chance. I think now is as good a time as ever to give you all an update on the OC Shorts project I teased a few months ago. Unfortunately, I can't really give too many details yet, but I will confirm that a pilot is currently in the works. We don't have an exact release date as of yet, but if I were to take an estimated guess, I would say somewhere in late 2024, if not early 2025. No guarantees, obviously. I'll give you all more updates about the project when we make some significant progress, so please be patient. We will get it out eventually, don't worry. Now for general updates. I know a lot of you were expecting me to upload the first retrospective video, and that was the original plan, but then some new lost media got resurfaced and I just couldn't help myself. But don't worry, that video is still in the works and should be set to release this June for StoryBots' 12th anniversary. As for other videos planned, well, I have a few of them. The Summer Fan Art Showcase will be coming on the first day of summer. I have another Ask Bang Anything video coming this July. And starting September, the character analysis videos will start. This will be split into 5 videos exploring each of the characters in Team 341B. Which of these characters will start first? Well, you're just gonna have to figure that one out when it releases. So please stay tuned. And that's pretty much it for me, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned at least something new today. Have a fantastic day, everyone, and I'll see you all next time.